Have you ever, reached the end of just a completely exhausting day, collapsed onto the couch, feeling overwhelmingly busy, but then you look back and realize you haven't actually accomplished anything meaningful?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you were just running on a treadmill all day.
It is a universally frustrating state to be in, honestly. You get that distinct combination of complete exhaustion and, well, zero tangible progress.
Right.
And it happens because we mistake motion for action. We think that just because we are expending all this energy, we must be moving forward, which, is rarely the case.
Yeah, that is so true. And today, we are looking at a really fascinating case study that tackles that exact feeling. We're pulling from a great source text from the Easy English Deep Dive. It's a narrative case study about a 29-year-old graphic designer named Sophia. And the mission of our deep dive today is to really extract the mechanics of how making tiny systemic changes to your daily routine can completely transform not just your daily productivity, but your overall confidence and even your ability to acquire complex new skills.
It's a really powerful example.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Where does Sophia actually start out in this case study?
Well, we need to map out Sophia's initial baseline first, which honestly is probably going to sound incredibly familiar to anyone who works in a modern office environment.
Oh, for sure.
She works for an international company, and while she actually enjoys her job, her baseline state is essentially just constant cognitive overload. I mean, her days are completely unorganized.
Right, she's just all over the place.
Exactly. She wakes up late, she skips breakfast entirely, rushes out the door to work, forgets tasks, and she has this lingering goal of learning English. But she tries to cram it in only when she happens to find free time.
Which is never.
Right. When a schedule like hers, free time is almost non-existent.
She is just the textbook definition of reacting to life instead of planning it, playing defense all day, every day.
Yeah.
It seems like the core issue isn't even time management for her, it's energy management. She is starting every single day in a massive deficit.
That's exactly it. She is constantly experiencing what psychologists call decision fatigue.
Okay, right.
From the very moment she wakes up late, she is frantically making these micro decisions, like what to wear, should I eat, can I catch this train?
Just constant panic.
Yes. So by the time she actually sits at her desk, her prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for complex planning and willpower, it's already totally depleted.
Whoa.
She ends every single day with that exact feeling you described at the start. Busy, exhausted, but completely unaccomplished.
So that brings us to the moment where everything shifts for her. Sophia is reflecting on her day, and she asks herself a rather pivotal question. She says, what if changing my daily routine could change my life?
It's a great question.
Yeah. She stops looking at external factors like, her boss or her horrible commute, and she starts looking at her own structural habits. And this leads her to a bookstore where she picks up a copy of Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Right, a classic.
Oh, absolutely. Now, anyone who follows productivity even casually knows this book. But as she's reading, she hits this one specific sentence that acts as the catalyst for her entire transformation.
Yeah, the quote she zeroes in on is really one of the foundational principles of behavioral design. It goes, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
It is such a great quote, and I think it highlights a trap a lot of us fall into. We just assume that if we want something badly enough, like learning a language or getting a promotion, that desire will somehow magically manufacture the daily discipline required to achieve it.
Right, which completely ignores human biology.
Exactly.
What the text is showing us through Sophia is that lasting change does not come from these massive, dramatic transformations. I mean, motivation is just an emotion. And like all emotions, it is incredibly volatile.
Right, it comes and goes.
It spikes and it crashes.
Yeah.
So if your ability to study English or, do your job well relies on a sudden spike in motivation, you're going to fail the moment you have a bad night's sleep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Sophia realizes in this moment that her problem isn't a lack of drive. Her problem is that she is operating on a faulty system.
Okay, but I have to push back a little bit here on behalf of anyone listening who might be feeling a bit skeptical.
Sure, go ahead.
Because, building a system in the first place still requires a massive amount of motivation, doesn't it? You have to have the willpower to sit down, design the routine, and actually force yourself through the initial friction of doing something totally new.
Well, setting up a system does require an initial injection of cognitive effort, yes. But it's really about where and how you apply that energy.
Okay.
You aren't relying on willpower every single day. Instead, you are front-loading the effort to alter your environment and your automatic behaviors.
Right. I've always thought about it like laying down train tracks. Like relying purely on motivation every single day is like trying to push a heavy car up a steep hill.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
It takes all of your strength, and the second you stop pushing, the car just
Rolls right back down over you.
Exactly. It crushes you. But building a system is like laying the steel tracks.
That framework explains the mechanics perfectly, actually. Laying the steel tracks is hard work up front. It takes conscious effort from your prefrontal cortex. But once those tracks are built, you put the train on them, and it just glides.
It glides, yeah.
In neurological terms, you are transferring the burden of progress from your conscious willpower over to your basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia.
Yeah, that's the part of the brain that handles automatic behaviors,
Right.
so you don't have to force it anymore. The tracks, the neural pathways, essentially they do the work for you.
Wow. Okay. So the true test of that theory is how Sophia actually implements this in her physical environment the very next Monday.
Right.
She decides to lay her first piece of track first thing in the morning. So previously, she was waking up late and just rushing around. Now the very first thing she changes is her relationship with her phone.
Such a crucial change.
Totally. Instead of grabbing the phone immediately upon waking up, she drinks a glass of water, opens the curtains to let the light in, and spends exactly 5 minutes stretching.
And, the constraints she places on this new routine are exactly what make it successful.
How so?
Well, 5 minutes of stretching is so small that the brain's amygdala, which typically resists large, overwhelming changes because it perceives them as a threat to our energy reserves, it just doesn't flag it.
Oh, wow. So she's tricking her brain.
Exactly. It bypasses the brain's natural resistance. And furthermore, she is addressing physiological needs before psychological ones.
Right. The water and the sunlight.
Hydrating and getting natural sunlight into her eyes immediately. It helps regulate her circadian rhythm and optimizes her morning cortisol release. She is physically waking her brain up before demanding it do any heavy lifting.
So she reclaims her morning without exhausting herself. She prepares a healthy breakfast and actually eats it without rushing out the door. But the real game changer happens right before her workday starts. Before she even leaves for work, and critically, before she opens a single email, she sits down and writes out her top 3 most important tasks for the day.
What's fascinating here is the psychological shift that happens when you define your priorities before observing anyone else's.
Right.
Because checking email first thing means you are immediately subjected to other people's emergencies. Your brain enters a highly reactive state.
Yeah, you're just putting out fires all morning.
Exactly. By writing down her own 3 crucial tasks first, Sophia establishes an internal locus of control. She is dictating the terms of her day, effectively telling her brain what a win looks like today before the noise of the office can even distract her.
It is literally the difference between driving the car and being locked in the trunk.
That's very true.
And the results at her workplace, according to the source text, are immediate. Because she plans her day before the emails hit her, she actually finishes her important tasks earlier. She feels significantly less stressed in meetings, and she communicates more clearly with her colleagues.
Her manager even pulls her aside and explicitly tells her, "You become much more organized and confident recently."
That is huge.
It is.
Yeah.
Because when you reduce the cognitive load of constantly figuring out what to do next, that freed up brain power naturally reallocates itself toward better communication and just higher quality work.
And she's not working harder
Right.
or putting in more hours. She just front-loaded the decision-making.
Precisely.
I want you, the listener, to stop and think about your own morning for a second here. When you wake up, are you starting your day on the defensive, reacting to every single notification? Or are you starting on the offensive, setting the terms for what you want to accomplish?
It makes a massive difference.
It's a subtle mechanical difference, but as Sophia shows us, it alters the entire trajectory of the day.
And that reclaimed time and energy gives her the capacity to tackle something that previously felt impossible for her mastering the English language.
Right.
This is a complex, long-term goal that requires deep work, which she previously tried to just force into her schedule only when she felt she had free time.
Which usually meant like long, grueling study sessions on a Sunday afternoon that left her totally burnt out, assuming they even happened at all.
Exactly.
But now she introduces the 20-minute strategy. So she uses her lunch break, she takes the 20-minute walk in a nearby park, and while she's walking, she listens to an episode of the Easy English Deep Dive.
Yeah.
She repeats useful expressions aloud as she walks, learning new vocabulary naturally through the context of the stories.
There is a lot of really solid cognitive science backing up this specific combination, by the way.
Really?
Oh, yeah. First, the dual tasking of walking and listening actually increases blood flow to the brain, which has been shown to improve memory consolidation.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and second, she is learning contextually. So instead of just memorizing isolated definitions off a flashcard, she is hearing how phrases function within a narrative. That creates much stronger associative links in the brain.
And the specific tools and tactics she uses are just incredibly constrained. So alongside the audio, she uses a book called English Vocabulary in Use. But she doesn't try to memorize long lists of words.
No.
She commits to learning just 10 new words a week. And I have to be honest, when I first read that in the source text, 10 words a week sounded absurdly low.
Well, it sounds low if you are measuring success by intensity. But she is measuring success by consistency.
Okay, explain that.
This is a practical application of the spacing effect. By taking just 10 words, writing simple sentences with them, and doing a quick review every evening, she is combating Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve.
The forgetting curve.
Right, it's how quickly we forget new information if we don't review it. If she tried to learn 100 words, the cognitive load would be way too high. She would forget most of them and just feel discouraged.
Right.
But by moving slowly and reviewing frequently, those 10 words actually transfer from her short-term working memory into permanent long-term storage.
That makes total sense. And for reading and speaking, she adds short stories in English for beginners. She reads a story and then summarizes it in her own words. But the tactic she uses next is brilliant, mostly because it tackles the emotional friction of learning a new skill. Sometimes she actually records herself speaking her summary.
Which is terrifying for most people.
Oh, total.
Recording yourself speaking a new language is incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It forces you to confront the gap between your taste, like how you know the language should sound, and your actual current ability. You hear every pause, every mispronunciation.
Yeah, the cringe factor is universally high there.
Right.
No one likes the sound of their own recorded voice, let alone in a language they are struggling to learn.
But the source points out a really crucial mindset shift here. When Sophia listens back and notices her own pronunciation mistakes, she intentionally overrides that natural feeling of embarrassment.
Wow.
She treats the mistake not as an indictment of her intelligence, but just as objective data. The recording is merely a feedback loop for her system.
That is so smart. The underlying mechanics of this success prove that consistency completely trumps intensity. Improving a complex skill does not require marathon study sessions.
No, it doesn't.
It requires short, daily, manageable investments that just compound over time. 20 minutes of walking and listening, 10 words a week. Treating mistakes as data.
And all of those small daily investments eventually push past a tipping point. The mechanical execution of her habits, the morning stretching, the proactive task management, the vocabulary reviews, it all begins to foster a profound psychological shift.
And we see this exact dynamic play out in a conversation she has with her friend Emma. Emma notices all this progress and asks Sophia, how did you become so disciplined?
I love this part.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love Sophia's reaction to this because she immediately shatters the illusion of the perfect robotic routine. She laughs and tells Emma, I'm not perfect. I still have difficult days.
Which shatters a really dangerous myth.
Yeah.
People often abandon their systems the moment they fail to execute them perfectly.
Yeah.
If they miss one morning workout, they consider the whole week completely ruined.
Right, but Sophia admits that success isn't about having one flawless day where you execute every habit perfectly. It is entirely about making good choices consistently enough that the structure holds up even on a really bad day.
Exactly.
The routine is a safety net so that when she's exhausted, she doesn't completely derail.
And that safety net reduces her baseline stress, which naturally creates even more cognitive bandwidth for the things she actually values. But the long-term effects of these consistent good choices, they lead to something much deeper than just better time management.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We get this beautiful climax to the case study several months down the road. Sophia joins an English conversation club.
Right.
And the topic for discussion that day happens to be, describe your daily routine.
A wonderfully full-circle moment for the narrative.
Oh, absolutely. The source text highlights that in the past, if she were asked to describe her routine, Sophia would have answered with very short, simple, broken sentences. But in this moment, she takes the floor and confidently, fluidly explains her entire life structure. She details her morning habits, her proactive work schedule, her 20-minute study routine, her evening relaxation, and her personal goals.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this moment in the conversation club reveals the true power of systemic habits.
Yeah.
Her daily actions did much more than just organize her schedule or help her memorize a few hundred vocabulary words.
Yeah.
They fundamentally shifted her core identity.
She moved from someone who wanted to learn English to someone who actually is a lifelong learner.
It's a concept known as self-perception theory.
Yeah.
We tend to think that our beliefs dictate our actions, but very often it is exactly the other way around.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, we observe our own actions to figure out who we are. So for months, Sophia watched herself wake up, stretch, plan her day proactively, and study for 20 minutes. Her brain observed this evidence and concluded, oh, I must be a disciplined, proactive person who values learning. She didn't just acquire a language, she acquired a profound sense of self-confidence.
Man, she laid the tracks, the train is moving, and the other learners in the room are just captivated by it. One participant even comes up to her afterward and says, your routine inspired me to improve mine.
That's incredible.
It is such an empowering narrative because the barrier to entry is so low. As we wrap up this deep dive, let's kind of distill the core takeaways from Sophia's journey for everyone listening.
I think the most freeing takeaway from this source text is what is explicitly absent from her strategy. You do not need a complicated, grueling routine to change your life.
No.
You do not need a punishing 5 a.m. wake-up call, cold plunges, or extreme fasting. And you certainly don't need to lock yourself in a room and study for 5 hours every day to master a complex skill.
What matters most is lowering the friction so that consistency is actually possible. Small actions rooted in a well-designed system and repeated every single day create compounding results.
Exactly.
Whether your goal is to improve your English, get healthier, be more proactive at work, or just feel a little calmer and less overwhelmed, your daily routine is the mechanism that manufactures those outcomes.
Yeah.
Every morning is a new opportunity to lay down a piece of track.
And every sentence she practiced, no matter how badly mispronounced at first, was objective data that brought her one step closer to fluency. Her habits became the physical evidence her brain needed to adopt a totally new, empowered identity.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by talking about that feeling of reaching the end of the day, totally exhausted, but realizing you hadn't accomplished anything meaningful. Sophia found her way out of that trap, not by trying harder, but by building small, conscious systems that protected her time and her energy.
We've seen how conscious, intentional habits actively build the future you want. But human beings are inherently creatures of habit, and our brains will automate behaviors whether we plan them or not. So if conscious habits build our desired future, it's worth examining the opposite. What is one hidden, completely unconscious habit that you engage in every single day without even realizing it? And what alternate future is that unseen habit quietly building for you right now?